Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I'm your host, Lena Nazari. You can find me on all the things. It's The Beautiful Dead podcast, or you can click on the link in the video description and join my Discord, which is where you get to talk to me every day, all day about all kinds of stuff, and that's where I see a lot of my podcast requests as well. And now, it's May. So this is not a request month. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. And I finally decided which ones I was going to do. I have them all on DVD. I've been avoiding a lot of these, so it was time to just do it. So we have 5 dates in May. So we have 5 movies to watch. And we are doing sequels. Not just any sequels. Sequels to some of the greatest vampire movies of all time, because they had the audacity to not just let them lie and let them rest in peace. No, they had to do sequels. So a lot of these I've been avoiding. This one especially. That's why I decided we're opening with this one, because this one I have not only been actively avoiding, but this is the one that by far the most people have told me not to watch. Well, you know that my goal is to do every vampire movie ever made, so eventually I'm going to have to watch it, right? And now it's time, because people do ask me if I've seen it. We are talking about Lost Boys, The Tribe. Okay. So, it's listed as a horror comedy. It's free on Tubi. I was very, very, very nervous about this one. So, we're going to do it. I've never seen it. When I decided to do a sequel month, this was the first one. Because I was like, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just get it done, right? So, we're going to talk about it once. Then we're going to scrub it from our memory like the goddamn trauma that it is. Okay? So let's just do it. Let's just get it over with. Okay? We're in this together. We are trauma bonded if you make it all the way through this video. We open on surfers climbing over a gate to get to an area of the beach that they shouldn't be in because it's private. And then we cut to them surfing at night under a full moon. Why is there always a full moon? It's vampires, right? Now we see the house, and there's a man in a robe, and he's looking out from this very nice house from his balcony, and he is watching them in the wee hours of the morning surfing on his private beach, and he is not going to have it. So now we cut to the man confronting the surfers, and it is Tom Savini. Yeah. So we have a crossover because we know Tom Savini's been in From Dusk Till Dawn, most famously, but also Pittsburgher, not far from me. So yeah, Tom Savini, I was like, oh buddy, but him showing up means absolutely nothing, right? So he says, I own the beach, I own everything on it, including you. And then he vamps out. But they don't care because they are also vampires. And they kill Tom Savini. And the guy who I guess is the leader says, make sure you take the head. And one of the groupies rips it off so that we can see just how strong they are. Oh boy. Yeah. Now it's daytime, and we get a bunch of shots of this beach town with rock music playing, and they are clearly trying to match the original with the People Are Strange opener, you know, where the family's moving into town. And this is going to be a theme in this movie because they get the famous scenes and they try and remake them, but in a new way, and it just does not, they do not stick the landing on any one of these. So this is the first time, right? So we have the big opening like we did with the vampires in the original. Then we have family moves to a beach town and rock music playing over top. Same thing. We see a car pull in with a U-Haul trailer behind it. So we got another new people to the beach city theme. This is Chris and his sister Nicole. They knock on a door and their Aunt Jillian opens up and she's so excited to see them. And then she starts to cry. She says, I'm so sorry that. And they were like, no, it's fine. So we're assuming their mom, her sister, has recently died. She shows them their new place, which is like a guest house on her property on the water. And it is not in good shape. It's actually in really bad shape. And they're like, what do you say, $650 a month? And that's how you know they're in like a beach town. And you can tell that they were not expecting to be charged, but they're like, yeah, that's fine. So Chris and Nicole get the key. They start to peruse their new shithole. They thought their aunt was going to let them stay there for free, but I guess joke is on them. The good news is they have a deer head that they hang on the wall. Downside is there's no beds and they're poor. So Chris is like, we'll find a used futon, a cheap one to sleep on. And his sister is like, oh, good, a used futon. That'll be awesome. So he's like, you know what? Let's just go out, walk around and see the new town. And then we get more B-roll. Yay. Gotta fluff the minutes, right? Chris is at a surf shop and Nicole is approached by a guy out on the street who's asking her for the time. Meanwhile, a young kid named Alex recognizes Chris, who I guess used to be a pro surfer, but he got kicked off the circuit. The guy outside talking to Nicole is Evan. He tells her this town is not safe for girls alone. It attracts a lot of bad people. Meanwhile, Chris is looking for work shaping boards and they tell him, go check out the Frog Brothers. And I was like, oh boy. The guy talking to Nicole gives him his number. Evan gives him his number. Evan gives her his number. Chris and Nicole go out and find the Frog Brothers. They're in the middle of nowhere in a trailer. Chris knocks on the door, but no one answers, so he leaves a note, but somebody is clearly watching him from inside the trailer. Now we cut to Chris and Nicole trying to fix up their new place. Nicole goes to take a shower while Chris looks longingly outside at the waves as the sun sets. And suddenly a man is sitting next to him. And Chris goes, you look like Shane Powers. And he says, I am. And Chris is like, well, you were the greatest surfer and then you just disappeared. So Shane invites Chris to a surf party to meet the rest of the guys. Later, Nicole asks if she can go, and he's like, no way, I don't have a good feeling. He seems weird. I'm not gonna go. And Nicole is like, you have to go. I need a night out. You need a night out. You used to love this guy. Aunt Jillian shows up and she's got donuts and the Goonies. So Chris and Nicole are like, oh, sorry, we're actually going to a party. So now we're at the party. And there are so many people there. And there's skateboarding, BMX bikes, dirt bikes, breakdancing, fire pits, pools. There's more cliches than you can probably track. And I think this was supposed to be the new boardwalk scene. Only we don't have an oiled up sax man. So what are we even doing here? Right. Chris and Nicole see a guy that they used to know on the circuit, and clearly there is bad blood there. Chris wants to go. Nicole is like, no, we're going to stay. And then he's like, you know, that hot girl is checking you out. And then she takes off so he can go make his moves. Then we get more party shots. Evan is there. He calls for Nicole, but Shane gives a head nod to his goons, and they stop Evan from going to Nicole. And then Shane approaches Nicole and introduces himself and then offers to tour her around his house. Chris watches the hot girl dance. I guess she's supposed to be the new star, whatever. I don't know. She shows us how sassy she is, and she knows him because she follows surfers. He follows her upstairs, and she's in the shower, so he undresses and heads for it. And I was like, that escalated quickly. Shane is showing Nicole his bedroom and his art because he's deep and romantic. And she tells him that their parents died in a car accident, which made Chris like kind of snap. He lost it. He was getting drunk, and then he lost all his sponsors. He got kicked off the circuit, so now they're broke, and now they had to come out here and live with their aunt. She says, Dying is going to happen to all of us someday. And Shane goes, well, that depends. Then he puts a dead rose in her hand and he covers it with her other hand. And then he puts his hand on top. And he says, close your eyes and imagine what this rose was like when it was young and vital. And then she opens her eyes, moves her hands, and it's a brand new rose. And then he hands her a flask and she drinks it. So instead of a wine bottle, it's a flask. And then she shudders. She starts to feel a little dizzy, so they go outside for fresh air. We see that Chris is in the shower with a girl. I don't even think he probably knows her name. They're in the shower doing what people do. So Shane and Nicole get on a motorcycle and leave the party. One of Shane's groupies stabs another one and people start screaming, but the stabbed guy is not dying. He's just pissed because they're vampires. Chris hears the screaming outside and leaves the shower to go check on his sister, but the girl is like trying to pull him back in and pull him back in. So I think she's been told, like, keep Chris distracted. Now we see Nicole out on the road on the back of the bike looking very happy. They stop somewhere under the full moon, they kiss, and then they take off again. Back at the party, they have rolled back up. Chris comes out and tells Nicole, get off the bike. Shane is like, dude, chill. And Chris punches him. They walk away and Chris tells Shane, stay away from my sister. Shane just smiles and licks the blood that's pouring out of his nose and onto his lips. And as they drive back, he's chastising his sister for taking off with a guy that she barely knows. But he was just banging a chick in a shower that he just met. So, okay, fine. Nicole pukes and says, something is wrong with me. Cut to them walking into their guest house. She's looking really bad. And Chris is like, you're just drunk. And she turns around and she has black eyes and knocks him back. But she gets knocked out from behind by a surfboard. And when it's revealed who it is Edgar Frog, Corey Feldman. He is back. Yes, it's a crossover. Not only was he in Lost Boys, but he was also in a movie called Corbin Nash, which I covered. So vampire crossovers. And he's like, I'm a vampire hunter and your sister is infected. And Chris is like, get the fuck out. And Edgar's like, it's your funeral. So now we cut to Chris tucking his sister into bed. There's a knock at the door and it's the hot girl from the party. And she's like, invite me in. So we know they have to be invited in. He does. They start to make out. And then we hear her growl. And then she has fangs, 2 sharp retractable fangs on each side. He's struggling with her, pushes her off of him and into the mounted deer. So she is staked by the antlers. She has black eyes, 2 sharp canines, long nails, and then she turns white into like stone and then turns into ash and then disappears. The next day he goes to the Frog house and he says, I don't know what's going on, but obviously you do. And Frog says, she's Nosferatu. She's the undead. She's a suck monkey. Suck monkey. That's not even funny. I was like, no. Chris tells Eddie about what happened the night before. Eddie explains anything piercing the heart will do, and being bitten or drinking the blood of the head vampire will turn you. Then he tells him, read the comic books. Again, trying to bring it back to the original. And then he drinks a drink that is garlic, holy water, and raw eggs, and he calls it frog juice. He's like, it's frog juice, it keeps me strong, whatever. I hated his whole thing. The voice, I hated everything. He explains that Nicole is only half vampire. She won't completely turn until after her first kill, which is consistent with the first one. Chris needs to kill the head vampire before Nicole kills. That night, Nicole is in the fridge. She's either thirsty or hungry, and she's moving very abnormally, and then she finds Evan's phone number and calls him. We cut to Evan arriving, and Nicole invites him in. He brought wine, which is like really nice of him, actually. She sets it aside, pushes him to the couch, climbs on top of him, and starts to kiss him, and then unzips his pants. She takes off his shirt, and her eyes are black. Like, I get that guys can have a one-track mind when they're horny, but you're not going to notice black eyes, really? Oh, okay, fine. Her fangs come out. Chris shows up with a cross, kicks Evan out, and then we see Evan walking home. Chris tells Nicole, you must have drinking vampire blood. Shane is the head vampire. You're a half vampire. And then he puts her in front of the mirror and she has no reflection. Then he says, good news is you're only half vampire. Eddie and I will kill the head vampire and you'll turn back to human. You just can't eat anybody. And she's like starting to freak out. So he holds up the cross, but she really doesn't seem all that affected by the cross. So maybe it doesn't work on half vampires. Evan is walking home and runs into one of the vampires. I don't know any of their names. I do not give a shit. I did not look them up. They chase him into a boathouse. They have black eyes. They're giggling. They're taunting Evan. Then we see Evan drug across the floor without being touched. So the vampires have telekinesis, I guess? Okay. Eddie and Chris are trying to figure out where the nest is. And Chris is like, Shane is the head vampire. I know this. We were at his house. I can show you. And Eddie's like, nah, the nest is always a place that saw human suffering. It's dank. It's dark, loaded with vermin, smells like decay. And as they're saying this, we see the camera is panning through what looks like railroad tunnels underneath. Not railroad, mining, like mining tunnels underneath. And so Shane wakes up in his bed and calls out to Nicole, who is drawn to her door, but it's daylight. So she puts on sunglasses and steps out. Eddie tells Chris that they need Chris back in the inner circle to find the nest. And so Eddie says, they can read your thoughts, man. And Chris is like, that's my sister. So Eddie says, I know what it's like to lose a sibling. So I guess that's how they wrote out the brother. We never see anything else about this. If you're going to do this, you have to be strong. You have to give in almost to the point of it becoming a full vampire, but then you have to betray them at the last second. But if you forget yourself, I will be coming for you. So the goal is for Chris to gain the vampire's trusts, be turned into a half vampire to get close enough to betray the vampires. But he's got to hold on to his humanity. We see Nicole heading to the entrance of the nest where Shane is, and they kiss. And then we get electric guitar and a drum song that has Cry Little Sister playing in the midst of it. And I hate it with the passion of 1,000 fucking fires. And this is clearly supposed to be a remake of Michael and Star's love scene. And I fucking hate it. I do have to say, though, the lair is super duper nice, considering that it's like in underground tunnels. They have like video games and the best of everything and a really nice bed, but whatever. Shane takes Nicole back into his part of the lair. They climb into bed and she's like, I don't want to lose my brother. And he says, don't worry, you won't, just trust me. Cry Little Sister cover. I've never been so fucking offended in my entire life. And then they have sexy, sexy time. And at one point, it's like from her POV. And he's looking at us. And I am so uncomfortable. And I hate every second of this. But I did it for you so that if you have not been subjected to this, you don't have to be. We can do this. We're halfway through. Okay. Chris is filing a missing report at the sheriff's office. They don't care because they have too many missing persons to even keep track of anymore. And Chris goes outside and runs into the asshole from the party who says, you know who I haven't seen in a while? Lisa. I haven't seen her in a few days and she was with you last. So that must be hot naked girl from the shower. Okay. Her name was Lisa. And then asshole is like, if you want to see your sister, keep it cool, get in the car, and Chris does. So as they drive, asshole is whistling in the hall of the Mountain King, which I guess it's because it's free, and then laughing like a hyena, and I fucking hate every second of this. They arrive to the lair. Nicole is there with Shane. Chris apologizes to Shane for hitting him the night before. Shane explains that all the boys in his group had a rough past, and becoming what they are has given them everything. He says, you and your sister will never grow older, you'll never die, but you have to take the first step. Then they ride bikes and skateboards to the sheriff's office. They lure the sheriff out by being super cool. Then they take off. The cops follow them in cruisers. And this is clearly supposed to be a remake of the bike scene, of the motorcycle scene where they come up against the edge. And I fucking hate this. And this whole scene reminds me of like the Mountain Dew commercials back in the early 2000s when extreme sports was like the coolest thing ever. And I am convinced that a 12-year-old boy wrote a story of what he thought made men attractive and look cool, and they used it. They outrun the cops. Chris is told he can't enter the lair until he becomes a member. Cut to morning. Chris returns home. His angry aunt comes out because their security deposit check bounced, and she tells him, take off your sunglasses. And then she goes, your sister had a guy over last night. How old is she? And Chris goes, almost 18. What? First off, that means she's 17, which means they're doing the teenage girl thing fucking again. I hate this. Teenage girl, 100-year-old vampire, I fucking hate that shit. But also, that actress is 30. Okay? 30. I expected her to be divorced with a kid. Like, she is not fucking 17. Are you kidding me? I hate every second of this movie, and it's gonna get worse. Because then she speaks one of the worst lines I've ever heard. She goes, sleep all day, party all night. You have to stop acting like a couple of vampires. And then storms inside, and I was like, if they give this bitch the final line in this movie and they try and make it like the final line of The Lost Boys, I'm gonna snap my DVD and then I'm gonna light it on fire. Yeah, that's how I felt about this. So, Chris goes inside, he lays down, he has a fitful day of sleep while we get voiceover of all the stuff the head vamp has said. He wakes up at night to a horn outside. He comes out and the gang has his surfboard and they are going to go surfing at night, and the aunt watches from her window. They're headed to Devil's Reef, but Chris mentions, it's too dark, I can't see anything. And then the vampires laugh. And Chris says, can you see in the dark? Can you turn into bats? And they're like, too many movies, bro. They pass around a flask, they hand it to Chris. They tell him, you're going to see things differently too if you take a drink. And he does. Then they're like, wait till you see the girls we have waiting for us at the reef. Because again, this was written by a couple of middle school boys at a skate park after they skipped fourth period. And if you don't believe me, the next scene is at the reef. There is a bonfire and hot girls who kiss each other because 12-year-old boys wrote this movie. Yes. Shane and Nicole leave together and they return to the lair for special time. The remaining boys tell the girls they're vampires, and then they shift and attack. And this is clearly supposed to be a repeat of the bonfire scene from the original one. And I'm telling you, every time I saw a scene that I knew was supposed to be basically a remake, I just got angrier and angrier. That's why my eyes look the way they do right now, because I'm furious at what I just watched. And I can't control my nature. So I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to deal with this for now. Chris refuses to kill. He tells his girl to run, but another vampire kills her and tells Chris, you fucked up. You should have killed that girl. I'm going to tell Shane. Basically, it's like, I'm going to tattle on you. Chris stakes him. Blood like gushes out of the wound as he dies. Another vamp attacks, but Edgar Frog shows up just in time with crosses and stakes and sends the vamps running. Chris tells Eddie, we need to get to the nest before my sister feeds. On the way, Eddie is blessing water balloons because he's an online ordained minister now. Whatever. Let's just get this over with, everybody. We get the same monologue from the first one about how vamps die. You know, the one that's like, sometimes they implode, sometimes they explode, sometimes they die quietly, sometimes they die screaming. So we get that whole monologue, and then what he adds on to that is he has a holy water balloon launcher. I don't give a fuck. Outside the lair, Eddie says, they know we're here. And I'm like, why are you not waiting until sunup? You and your sister, as far as you know, are still half vampires. So wait until sunup and then go kill all the vampires. Why are you going in the middle of the night? That's fucking stupid. Meanwhile, Shane is leading Nicole to a coffin, and inside the coffin is her first victim who's tied up, and it's Evan. And Shane says, if you love me, you'll do this. Everybody. If anyone ever looks at you and says, if you love me, you'll do this, don't fucking do it. Walk. That is, I hate those bullshit lines. Chris and Eddie are walking through the tunnels. Chris gets pulled away by one of the vamps quietly, and Eddie's like, oh, so much for me telling you to stick with me. Like, you're the worst fucking vampire hunter I've ever seen. The guy who pulls Chris away, he and Chris fight. Chris wins. I'm speed running this because I want it over with. Eddie also fights one of the vamps. I don't care. Chris and Shane have their standoff. Nicole enters. All of them are vamped out. Pause. I do not know how to describe them being vamped out right now, okay? Normally I'm pretty good at describing it. I'm going to share it on YouTube. For those of you who are listening, you're just going to have to go look it up because they look like swollen babies. They're like, it's not even like the protruding brow and cheekbones that we're used to. It's like a full face, but it's shiny and it's pale and they look fucking edematous. Like they look like they're in fluid overload in their faces is what it looks like. I hate it. All right. Chris and Shane have the shortest, most unsatisfying fight I've ever seen when Nicole stakes Shane and she goes, he's family, asshole. I don't even know if that's the line. I probably wrote it better, actually. I'm sure I delivered it better. But she's like, he's family, asshole. And then Chris beheads him. He bursts into flames. And now Chris and Nicole are free. Eddie shows up, so I guess he won his fight. We don't get to see it. He says, I'll be sending you a bill for my service. And then he walks away. It's sunrise as the siblings return home, dropped off by Eddie in a pickup truck. And in the bed of the truck is Evan, who did not die because she did not kill him because she remained a half vampire. The siblings go into their place, open beers, sit down to relax. And this was where I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. The aunt kicks in the door and I thought, here we go. She's going to say something like, if you think I'm terrible, whatever, right? She is like, your behavior is unacceptable. Don't think I don't know what you've been up to. I'm not stupid. And then basically implies that they have a marijuana problem, ignoring the fact that they're completely covered in blood. And then it's credits. And then we get a mid-credit scene. And it's Eddie at night hunting alone. A vamp shows up. Eddie calls him Sam. He steps into the light, and it's clearly supposed to be Sam from the first movie, who's now a vampire. Credits again. So, when the credits hit, I felt like, thank God it's over. Thank God it's over. I had so many feelings all at one time. I was like, I can't believe I spent money on this DVD, but it's okay because it was part of a 4-pack. My original Lost Boys got ruined, so I ordered a new Lost Boys, and this one was like a 4-pack of 4 different movies, and the Tribe was in there, so it's fine. It's okay. I did not mention this, but the guy who plays the head vamp is played by Kiefer Sutherland's half-brother. Awkward Thanksgiving is all I gotta say. Like, if I were Kiefer and I watched this, I would be torn because I'd be like, I want to support my half brother, and we've all done shit movies. I've done shit movies, but how could you do that to me? Like, that legacy. Yeah. So it ended and I was like mad, but I was also just so glad it was over with because I was determined to do it for this podcast. It is a great way to start the sequels month because it cannot get worse than this. There's no way that any of the sequels I'm gonna do are worse than this one. So I feel like I started it off right by just getting this shit over with. So let's do this. I refuse to rate the vampires. I will not give them the honor or the satisfaction of treating them like I treat the other vampires on this podcast. Fuck you. I am not rating you. Done. All right. Let's talk about my thoughts. They're trying so hard to be the original movie. They have the pier scene as a party. They have the bike chase as a cop chase. The shifting and killing around the bonfire. Instead of a comic book shop, it was a surf shop. They have the siblings protecting each other. I am so disgusted by this movie. It was so bad. There was absolutely, first off, you waited 20 years to bring out a sequel, and this is what you gave us. This is what you gave us. The writing was so sloppy. The acting was essentially phoned in. The vampire makeup was way over the top. I hated every second of this movie. As a matter of fact, I had to watch it in 3 parts. I had to watch a little, stop, walk away. Watch a little, stop, walk away. I have never been so personally offended by a film in my life. I mean, wow. So we're gonna do it, everybody. This is my favorite punishment for movies that I detest, that I think are bad. So we are gonna do some of my favorite. There's a lot of IMDb reviews on this movie. If you want to chuckle, pour a glass of something and go read the review titles. But I wanted to pick some of my faves. So if any of the people who wrote this review watch this video, please mention yourself down below because it's hysterical. So the first one is written by somebody called Smells Like Cheese. And the review title is Surfing Vampires Hang Fang. Cute. That's cute. But I feel like it wasn't mean enough. It should have been a lot meaner. AGF 8623, they gave advice. They said, fire the writer. Bye. This one is Metal Claw Wolf, who wrote, bad. Actually, I hated this movie so much, I registered on this website just to tell the world how bad this movie is. Heroes don't always wear capes. Good for you. You are doing a public service. We are out here spreading the good word, which is fuck you, Lost Boys the Tribe. This one is by Cheeky Plums, and it just says, oh my God, what the hell have they done? This one is right to the point, and I normally wouldn't pick a title like this. I chose it because of the reviewer. So the reviewer is Count Vlad Dracula. Sire, Master, thank you. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you took the time because it just says one of the worst sequels I have ever seen. I'm going to one-up you, Count Vlad Dracula, and tell you not one of, the worst sequel I have ever seen. Now, I want you to join me for the rest of May because here are the sequels we're gonna do. Let's pull up my little Witch's Day planner here, and I'm gonna tell you everything that is planned if you haven't seen it. We are doing Vampires Los Muertos, which is the sequel to John Carpenter's Vampires. We're doing 30 Days of Night, Dark Days. We're doing Return to Salem's Lot, which is the only one on this list I've seen. And then we are doing the OG Fright Night 2 from 1988. Now, I have seen that one, but it's so long ago that I just have like these snippets in my head and it's almost like a fever dream. So I'll be interested to see if it comes back to me once I start watching it again. It was very hard to find, and we'll talk about it when I do the review, why it's so hard to find. And if you were in my Discord, you saw me saying like, I shouldn't have spent this money on this DVD, but I did it because now I have it and I'm the proud owner. But I would wager a meal that Lost Boys the Tribe is the worst sequel ever made, but definitely the worst sequel in this bunch. So doing it first was definitely the right decision. So come back next week. We're going to talk about Vampires Los Muertos, which has John Bon Jovi in it. So I'm pretty excited about that. We have done the original here on the podcast, so it's a great one to go look at the sequel. It is on Tubi, so go check it out if you haven't seen it. Come back next week. I'm gonna talk about that one. I'll have different eyes. I haven't decided which ones, but I'll have different eyes next week. Of course, you guys know how much I love you. And I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.
Thank you.